Margo, before we get started, I would like to ask you to tell us something that you believe about business finances that might surprise us.
Business finances is easier than everyone expects by just meeting yourself where you're at. I used to think my whole life finances and business was hard. When I gave myself this tool and this practice to really meet myself where I'm at, my journey and my exchange of different life circumstances came like a milestone a minute. It was just imagine things just really turn styling at your fingertips.
Welcome to the source of commercial real estate, where we talk to the experts in commercial real estate so you can grow your business, find a competitive advantage, and use real estate to live the life that you want. I am your host, Jonathan Hayek. I'm a former public school teacher who found financial freedom through residential real estate investing, and now I invest in commercial properties, particularly small industrial. And today I have the privilege of talking with Margo Masri. Margo is with Heartfelt CFO and Tax Services. She's a multiple award winning full service accounting firm. Heartfelt CFO and Tax Services offers a highly customized financial solutions specifically designed to take your business to the next level. She uses cutting edge accounting techniques, drawing on a wealth of industry specific experiences. She is your trusted partner for enhanced business growth and increased automation and efficiency and class leading customer experience. Those are things that I like to hear. Margo, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Amazing. I'm so excited to be on today. Thank you for having me.
Margo, why don't we start out the conversation by you telling us a little bit about your background and what you find yourself doing today?
So, my background, I grew up thinking money was hard, and it was always around the dollar seeming like it was really hard to make. And around me, everything was always taught that you had to push, you had to force, and you really had to do more to make things work. Around me, where I grew up, there was always a lot of real estate happening. I would see people tearing down buildings, and I was like, wow. I used to think that they were mean people. Like, why would you do that? Take families out of their home so that you can build these buildings, like who knows. But then as I grew up, I was like, wow, they're making more people places to live, they're making an impact in a different way. And then just one day I connected it to what I love in accounting, of making the dollar easier for business owners and seeing through real estate, through the field, through that vehicle. You really can have a life freedom that you don't expect. There's so much reward through there. I've done a lot of public accounting work, and I'm really grateful for the journey because I was led to a lot of customized opportunities that led me to where we are today. Now we are a full service bookkeeping, accounting, and tax firm, tax planning for real estate professionals. We meet you where you're at and help you beyond your wildest dreams.
You said something really interesting. You said in your background that you had this mindset that money is hard and it's almost elusive and it's difficult to get. Will you, I think so many of us have baggage with money. We've got all of our previous experiences and mindsets and, the way we grew up and our childhoods really shape what we think and believe about money. Will you talk a little bit more about your previous mindset of having that mindset of money is hard, it's difficult to acquire, it's difficult to understand? And can you talk about overcoming that if you have overcome that?
Oh, totally. So I share this through a story actually. When I was young, there was this jacket I wanted, and it was to the tune of like $130. And my father worked at night, my mom worked during the day. And the idea of even asking my parents for this jacket was like the jitters was happening. My mind was blown. And I was like, there's just no way. And somehow the conversation did happen. And my dad told me one day we were going. And I was like, wow, today's going to be the day I'm going to be like the other kids. I'm going to have this beautiful jacket like the other kids. And I saw his face at the register, and it was almost like a World War type, like how hard it was, and like his whole body temperature dropped, and you can see everything change. From that point on, that stuck with me. I was like, wow, my dad really tried that hard for me to help me for something that I wanted. And from that moment on, I was like, I want to make a dollar seem easier for others than what it really is. And what I learned is accepting where I'm at to begin created the intimacy with money, and really the practices each and every day to know not just my bank account balance, what I'm spending on, what I owe, and being comfortable with it. A recent shift that I've made over the past 5 years, I only use cash flow to operate my business and even my household and investments. I have a very high demand for myself that I've developed at this point so that I can do it. And the way you get intimate with money is one step at a time. We all carry this layer of should and beliefs of what needs to be. And I'm going to share another story to actually capture this. My son today is actually at an event, and he started a business, and my daughter is there too. And he has this belief of how things should be there. Within the first 10 minutes of around the money stuff that came up, we were talking about this, and he made a different decision. And he texted me right away, and he's like, Mom, you're totally right. And it wasn't like, oh, I did it. It was more of like, we think things need to be a certain way because it worked for someone else. We need to find what works for us, and eventually, or as quick as possible, I call it the comeback rate, accept where we are. What's out there is available for you. It just may not be in the timing that we all want. There's this rush, and like there's this marathon of like $1 million plus business, or I gotta have 100 units plus. Like I hear this from a lot of real estate professionals, but everyone had to start from somewhere. And to grow with money, it's like, I'm going to get a little kinky here. It's like, we all want intimacy. It's the same thing. The more you are intimate with your money, the quicker you're going to be to create transformation with it.
Margo, I love those stories, especially that story from your childhood about the jacket. I know I have these spotty stories about money from my childhood that, looking back, have really shaped my beliefs. And, some ways right, some ways wrong.
Yeah.
But, I look back on a lot of those stories, and I've had to overcome some of those things and some of those beliefs that were instilled in me by my family,
Mm.
through no fault of their own. They have their own stuff from their childhoods that they brought, to their beliefs about money. And, I don't know if are you familiar with, the online personality Ramit Sethi?
Mm-hmm.
He has a blog, and he's got a blog and a podcast called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And he really, with his guest, he really gets into their beliefs about money and
Mm.
why they believe the way they do, and going back to their childhood with, different experiences and things that happen to them, and that have really shaped what they believe about money. And so, I want to ask you, so I know, speaking from myself, certainly, and I know other real estate professionals and business owners, the financial part of their business is sort of, with so many people, it's like the last thing that gets addressed. It's like
Mm.
the let's get deals, let's find tenants, let's raise capital, and the finance, the back end stuff, the bookkeeping, let's worry about that later. Put that on the back burner. Why do you think that is? Why do you think so many business owners and real estate investors are hesitant to get involved with the real nitty gritty financial side of their business?
The ego runs the decisions. And number two, it's the idea of what should happen. And it really comes down to the gritty. It's the truth of where that money is going to come from if they can't do it. Learning to say no. I can't do it right now, because a no is okay. People don't realize no is a full sentence. And unfortunately, there's a lot of shame around no. And it could be we took steps that we think it should be a certain way. And I'm actually going to share a story. I was actually working with an investor this morning, and we have some heavy coaching going on around this, around the childhood beliefs and around the finances being later. And when it came to like his wife's birth, there was a lot of things around needing to help her and what he can't do versus what he could and all of the demands. It really comes down to people are afraid to tell the truth. However, the transformation around the truth is the financial success, is the freedom. It's that place. And the longer it sits there is the longer debt, interest rates, and all of those things accrue. Because the quicker you meet that, the quicker it does not exist. I can tell you 11 out of 10 stories that come through my door, they all, once they walk through that gray phase, they all make money on the other side. Not just because it's me. It's the act of allowing yourself to be there. It's that hold. If anything, it shaped my life too of what it needed to be. A lot of chronic pain of holding inside, also as an accountant. And what I realized was, as we hold as professionals, as people, it leads us versus meeting ourselves where we're at so that we can lead with the clues and the keys that help us for our next steps. Money is easy. It's hard because we make it hard. If you think about it, 20 years ago, you didn't have any of this. But all of a sudden, that 10 years starts to unfold and it starts to go down. And then things start to creep up of like this story of what he did and what they did and that corp. But later is today. There's never a good time. And when that never good time exists, I could tell you this extension season, I've had more people come in for the bust of extension than ever in this industry. The procrastination, and I'm going to even call it the hallucinations, unfortunately, to file and take the steps is bigger than ever. It hurts my soul. And I'll tell you, a client said to me this morning who signed on, he's like, it was hard for him to come through with the money, but he wanted to do it. And he goes, if it wasn't you, Margo, and I didn't know you, I would think you were selling me. He goes, but I know you're trying to help me. Because what we did was meet him where he's at, what he could pay, and make the step seems more attainable. When you break it down, it's so much more feasible. 1, 2, 3, 4. You take the goal, you need the return, let's say, and then we backtrack it, whether it's 2 steps or 5 steps. We don't change the goal. We just try to meet ourselves with the actions. And just to close this point, because I can go on and on why real estate guys do it, it's the ego. And to all you incredible men out there that are doing it, the classiest, the most hunkiest, and the most gorgeous thing on a man is the truth. And I'm saying it in an intimate way because it's the truth. Women and other people don't want the hunky-dory stories. They want the truth because people want business to happen. They want that. But when you can't meet things after, it becomes harder and harder, and it's just going to show up in another way.
Yeah, that's really powerful stuff, Margo. I think finances for so many business owners, especially if we don't have a financial background, it can really be a heavy burden that we carry. And as years go on and we continue on in our business, the burden gets heavier the more we do not deal with it. And so, listeners, if you feel like you do not know where your money is going in your business, you are not alone. Plenty of
Mm-hmm.
business owners are there. And, the more you put it off and the more you ignore it, the worse the problem gets. And so I'm certainly speaking from experience. I have been there myself. And my now in my business, we, for the most part, have our finances figured out. But it took a long time to get there. It took years to get there. And it took a lot of time to unwind the mistakes of the past to
Mm.
get it to where they need to be. So, can you talk about some of the biggest mistakes that new business owners or business owners in general are making with their finances?
Saying that their business is not hard, not realizing exactly what you just said, unwinding the past for it to be easy, or because it's in the past, it's okay. It doesn't need to be dealt with. There's so many, mixing business and personal, doing everything at the personal level with no entity. At the core, where it comes down to not knowing your numbers. When you don't know your numbers own you and lead you. And then it comes with interest and penalties and red flags that will own you. So the mistake I say is, I tell you to start with, is the thing that's the hardest for you to step into, and get support with it so that they can help you and just take the steps to get out of that. It doesn't get easier. As you grow in real estate, the problems get bigger, but the concepts are the same. So what happens is that we take what works and replicate it and duplicate it. And when you have a third party look at it, they're able to give you that eye and that vision, because chances are you're already doing stuff that works. It's just that reality. It may also be a big thing I see is not surrounding yourself with the right people. You're surrounding yourself with people who are bigger than you possibly, or lower than you possibly, but they're not rooting you on, or they're not cheering you up when things are hard and picking you up. And picking you up in business and entrepreneurship is truly the most important thing. Money could be replaced, money could be made. What can't be made so easily without a decision within is your decision to comply with that and to honor yourself there. So, all you real estate professionals out there, you're doing an amazing job. Just take that step to know your numbers, and in that gray area, get good support. If a guy is not rooting you on, or picking you up, or bashing you, it's not the right person. You want surrounding people who are going to leverage you up and help you and see through, let's just call it the baggage and the junk, and help you create that vision again. Create a grounding place, believe it or not. Another thing I really want to put out there is take care of yourselves. If you don't take care of yourself, some type of health routine. It's not just waking up in the morning and posting on LinkedIn and saying you woke up at 4 a.m. It's beyond that. It's embodying it, really embodying it. It could be at night reading your kids also a bedtime story, going to dinner with your kids, ice cream, coffee. It's not just being the person to make more money. It's embodying what you're putting out there. Posts and all of these things are amazing, but really living what you're putting out there is just so, so important. And a health routine is so undermined. It could be twice a day. I stop in the middle of the day to reboot myself and look at my cognitive load. Like if you have 25 screens open, that means you have 25 different topics open. That's not going to fly. What's going to fly is one thing at a time. It could be 4 work together, but we want to be real on where we really are.
Margo, will you talk to someone who is maybe at the early stages and maybe they don't quite have a handle on their finances? Maybe their finances are a little bit of a mess. Maybe they don't know how much money they have, how much money they're making. They don't know how to anticipate next year's tax bill. They're they're humming along in their business. Maybe they're getting deals, they're increasing revenue, but the financials are a little bit of an unknown. Will you give some practical tips, either something to be working on weekly or monthly, software suggestions, some practical tips for someone like that to get started in the right direction?
So first off, for sure we would talk. That's why I'm the Heartfelt CFO, because right away, as you were saying it, I have compassion for that. Almost nobody, even with a financial background, would have the most ideal way to do all of that. There's an implementation component in addition to the action that you're doing to create that. What I would say is, to start, is really to check in with your bank account every day. Do some basic actions. Open up your credit card bill. Be real with where your bills are at. Be real with where your cash flow really is, and work from there. If you can't afford support on a regular basis, that's okay. There's quarterly options, there's ad hoc options. You can just do like some type of advisory. I mean, we do that. You want to do something that's going to push you to the next level. And if it's really around indecision and freeze, get some support. There's a ton of tools, but I would say the most thing is doing a budget. And don't call it a budget. Call it like your journey to real estate's breakthrough. Like, call it something that you want to attend when you open it up, that it seems inviting. Make it colorful. This could sound ridiculous, but numbers to make it fun. We do have to do things. I mean, who wants to work out sometimes 5 a.m.? My son this morning went to a workout class at 5 a.m. It's not what I want to do at 5. Like, let's be real. So I don't always wake up and say, I want to look at my numbers. So we got to do these little tips and tricks that make us happy. You can eat some chocolates, put on some music, put on some of those candles, like these things that are going to meditate and soothe you and calm you down, and be in a safe place. These basic things will really elevate you to the most highest way. And just take one step. If it's one step a week, one step a month, have a win board, because you did it. Even if it's just knowing your goal, creating the steps, financially to take the step. If it's not through a support tool, find a podcast that you like, put it on to encourage you. Lots of times when things get hard, to encourage you, you could have indirect things. Read a blog, take some type of tool that really is speaking to you. But the highest thing is really knowing where your bank account is at and your investments, where the money is going to come from, is the truth. But I want to loop this together, is to all my real estate professionals, don't put your family at risk, or know the risk that you're putting your family in to take those steps. Because what I see is happening way too often is that people want to make it happen, and then the family component is at risk. So if your family needs 50,000, 100,000, 25,000, whatever it is to live and pay your bills, work around your personal life. Don't make the work around personal. We want to make the personal first and the work around it, because there's nothing worse than coming home to a family structure that is in chaos and in fire. And after a day, what you really want is sleep, good food, health, so that you can start again the next day.
Yeah, really valuable advice there. Thanks for sharing that. And, I think an important takeaway that I took from that is, you start with where you are and you can make progress. And, you learn the lessons from your past and you hopefully don't repeat those mistakes and you keep moving forward. And
You may
eventually,
repeat them. Sorry to interrupt, but you may repeat them. Congratulate yourself and just know you did it that. Oh, dang, I did it again. How am I not going to do that again?
yeah. Yeah. And eventually, it is possible to figure out these finances and get yourself into a good spot. But at some point, hopefully, if your business is growing enough, your finances might be just too much to handle in house. And at this point, you have to make a decision where you're going to hire some financial people in house, whether it's a bookkeeper, accountant, people like that, or a specific finance person. And then there's this other thing called a fractional CFO. So, will you talk about maybe this strategy of an advanced? My 1 year old just crept into my office. Um, Talk about some this more advanced strategy for somebody who has more finances than they can handle themselves in house, and maybe a fractional CFO position would be right for them. Will you talk more about the fractional CFO idea?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to build that into where HCT, Heartfelt CFO, was built to help create that picture. So what I was seeing through working through the real estate industry, I started off as just a bookkeeper, then I added accounting, then I added CFO, then I added tax planning. What I really realized was that people were navigating the whole journey and coming to a point where it was like, oh my wow, how did all of these things happen that I need all of these positions, and you can't necessarily employ each and every single one. So what we did at our firm is that it's all based through me as a CFO and a tax advisor and a wealth strategist, that through me and in my team, you can get bookkeeping services at a CFO level, you can get tax planning at a CFO level, and we have a full-blown tax team so that you're not going to separate services, that our team behind the scenes can get that. Why a fractional CFO will help? Because we have all those skills and tools, and we're going to help you direct. Like somebody who directs traffic, we're going to direct you in business, tax law, and all of the in between around money. And it's meeting you where you're at with the services that will match your business. And what we do is we just say is just take one step, and then from there so much can unfold. But usually the first step is people look for just a bookkeeper. What happens is that unfortunately there's a lot of overseeing, but you're overseeing and you don't know. You only know what you know. And that little bit extra that you're going to get in our firm is going to help you avoid compliance issues, like I was telling you before, extension upon extension, procrastination and hesitation. And it's going to help you make steps quicker, and your comeback rate is going to be even better. And to loop this together back when we were talking about money, you're going to make money by doing less, by having more skills that you can implement that will just build on each other and work together.
Is there a point at which a business owner can sort of look inside and look at themselves and say, "Okay, it's time for me to hire this out"? Whether it's the fractional CFO, whether it's a bookkeeper or a wealth strategist or business strategist, is there? Yeah, can you talk about when is there like a canary in the coal mine or some sort of indicator that a business owner should say, "Okay, it's time to get some help at this point"?
I mean, look, I always say this is owning a business. You should not have help. But if you're in the position where you don't have help and you're finding yourself with questions over how to do, or you're going to coffee dates for answers, or you're going to Facebook chats and LinkedIn posts for answers, and you're expecting those answers, you're in desperate need for help. Because people are giving experiences of their experiences, it's not pertaining to you. And I'm going to share a story, if it's okay, around this. I have a client who has, for her practice, she has 18 contractors. And she puts them where they have to have their own entities. Now, there's no universal answer of which entity. What happened is that when I was diving into the issue, is that some of the people didn't even need those entities, and they were going into agreements just to work with her, because in her real estate business, that's the way she decided to run it. I'm not saying it's bad, good, or otherwise, but what happened is, because they didn't want to spend the money on a consultation or an advisory consult, they were stuck in an agreement that was bigger than them. So they were in agreement on how they were going to get paid, and tax requirements that were bigger than them in terms of an entity that didn't support them. So now, like another example that came through my door this morning, somebody needed a tax return that really didn't support them. So they're stuck with more accounting fees than is really suitable to the situation. And when somebody needs, let's say, like an S Corp return, even if the business only made like $30,000 a year, the S Corp still, to make a return, still has a base fee. It could be you can't afford it, and it really is true. But without that consult, it's not meeting you where you're at to take the right steps around money, business, and tax. We all waste money. Sorry, one other thing. We all go to the store, waste money on Snapple and water, like all these, impulsive things. So I'm not undermining spending on those things, and I'm not undermining the idea of $500, but a consult of, let's say, $500, just putting it out there, can get you so far with so much information of asking the questions so that you have the right support. So if you find yourself in a situation where it's so much of like the how, and you need to figure it out, and you're inundated and even in chronic pain around it, which is very common, and indecision, please get help. At least DM me and ask me a question.
So is the takeaway, I guess, from those stories you shared, the person with 18 different entities, is the takeaway that people can get, maybe they hear something on a podcast or read something on a blog or read something in a book. They think it applies to them. They think it's the right thing to do. I don't want to pay however much money for a consultation or to hire a fractional CFO. So I'm just going to read a book or listen to a podcast and then implement that. That's the free way of doing it. Is the takeaway that, when you meet with someone one-on-one, face-to-face, and they hear about your situation, you can get something that's tailor-made to you. Whereas, you might get something that is completely unnecessary, like having 18 different entities, and that may not be necessary for you. And then you just have to eventually unwind it all. Or you're paying, ridiculous fees to maintain these entities that aren't even necessary.
So look, ideally, you get the consult. You get some type of one-off consult. If you don't, and you're making a decision for where you're at, congratulations. But if it doesn't work out, you got to be okay with that too, because you did make a decision without support. And that's another takeaway I'd like to emphasize here, is that stop pounding on yourself if the decision was wrong. Because just because you went to someone else, it doesn't mean it's going to come out right. It just means that they're going to be able to reroute you if you make a mistake or if things didn't turn out. But on your own, you're going to need to reroute yourself. And if it didn't happen that way, my coaching here is listen to those keys and those clues for your next steps. Look at it from an observer standpoint and make new steps. Don't pound on yourself and be like, dang, I was wrong. I shoulda, coulda, woulda, and all of these things. Because everyone has to start somewhere.
Margo, this has been a great conversation. I feel like we've hit on a lot of money mindset ideas, but also some tangible and practical tips for managing finances in your business. We didn't even get to talk about any real estate tax strategies. So I'll definitely have to have you on again sometime. If listeners want to learn more about you, talk to you, where would you like to send people?
My LinkedIn profile, margomasri.com, is ideal. You can also go to our website, Heartfelt CFO and taxservices.com.
Margo, thank you so much for joining me today.
Of course. Thank you for having me. This was so fun.
Listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, reach out to either one of us. We love talking about this stuff and we would love to connect with you. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening to it or watching it. We are so appreciative that you stayed with us this long. Until next time, take care.